Humanity had always been the underdog, while the great alien civilizations of the galaxy have flourished for millennia. Humans were still newcomers to the stars. Their first true flagship, the Omen Asterisk, was a testament to their ambition. A sleek, cutting-edge vessel designed with a mix of advanced technology and sheer human determination. But to the established powers of the galaxy, it was nothing more than a child's first toy, easily dismissed and underestimated. Captain Elena Trask, a seasoned strategist who had earned her reputation as a fighter and negotiator, stood at the bridge of the Omen Asterisk, watching as the stars stretched into long streaks of light ahead. Her crew, an eclectic mix of brilliant scientists, engineers, and soldiers, were all eager for the adventure that lay ahead. But they couldn't ignore the doubts that hung in the air. The Federation had poured resources into the Omen Asterisk, hoping it would be humanity's gateway to a prominent place in the galaxy. However, most alien species saw it as a joke, a symbol of hubris, rather than a threat. On this first mission, the Omen was to travel to a remote star system where a series of unexplained phenomena had been reported. The Federation wanted answers. The Council's orders were clear: investigate, document, and report back. But Trask knew there was more riding on this mission than just gathering data. Every alien in the galaxy was watching. The Kithar, the Eldari, the Exailmar. They all had their eyes on the humans, eager to see if their ship would fail or succeed. "Captain, the fleet has been deployed to cover our departure," Lieutenant Zane, the tactical officer, reported, glancing over his screen. "We're clear for launch. All systems go." Trask nodded, her gaze still fixed on the view ahead. She had faced her share of skepticism in her career, but nothing quite like this. Humans weren't supposed to be in space. They weren't supposed to be in command of a ship like the Omen Asterisk, an unprecedented design that combined military-grade weaponry with scientific exploration capabilities. It was sleek, fast, and versatile, but to their detractors, it was simply too new, too untested. As the ship broke through the atmosphere of Earth, Trask felt the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. She knew how critical this mission was for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Omen Asterisk would either prove humanity's worth or solidify their position as an afterthought. The first jump into deep space was uneventful, but the crew felt the thrill of the unknown. The hum of the engines echoed through the ship, and for the first time in a long while, they all felt that sense of unity, the sense that they were part of something bigger than themselves, something they had to fight for. But that sense of excitement was quickly replaced by the cold reality of space. As the Omen entered the outer rim of the star system they were tasked with investigating, their sensors picked up an anomaly, something that shouldn't be there. "We're not alone," Zane said, his voice tight with tension. The crew's excitement turned to apprehension. The silence of space had been broken, but by what? A threat? A new discovery? No one knew. But whatever it was, the Omen Asterisk was ready to face it head-on. And Captain Trask, she was ready to prove the galaxy wrong. This was humanity's moment to rise, and she wouldn't let anyone, or anything, get in their way. The anomaly was unlike anything the Omen had encountered before. It was a massive, moving object, detected by their sensors as it glided just outside the ship's path. For a moment, Captain Trask couldn't make sense of the readings. The object was too large to be an asteroid, too structured to be a natural phenomenon. It was a ship, but it wasn't one any of them had ever seen before. "Lieutenant Zane, identify that object. Is it a friendly vessel?" Trask's voice was steady, but her mind was already working through the possibilities. Zane's fingers flew across the console as he tried to get a clear reading. "Negative, Captain. It's not responding to hails. The structure appears organic, almost living. I'm getting strange energy readings. No known classification." The crew looked at each other, confusion rippling through the room. What kind of vessel was this? The Federation had mapped this part of space for years, and no alien race had been reported in this sector. This was supposed to be a simple mission, one with no immediate threat, just another mystery to solve. But now, it seemed the Omen had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than they could have anticipated. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Trask ordered. If it's hostile, we need to be ready. Before anyone could respond, the unknown ship shifted position, its massive form moving with eerie precision. The Omen sensors began to go haywire, and an urgent warning flashed on the main screen. Incoming fire. Captain, we've been targeted, Zane shouted, eyes wide in disbelief. A sudden burst of energy lashed out from the alien ship, slamming into the Omen's shields. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Trask's grip tightened on the armrest as she barked out orders. Shields up to full power. Engineer, status on our systems. The engineering officer, Lieutenant Harper, quickly responded. Shields holding at 60%, Captain. Weapons are fully charged and ready. However, if they hit us again, we'll be in trouble. Trask's heart pounded in her chest, but her mind remained calm. The Omen was built for this. She wouldn't let her crew become victims of surprise. The alien ship's attack may have been a warning, but it was also a clear sign of intent. They were under fire, and they had to fight back. Fire back. Use our disruptor beams, Trask commanded, her voice now firm and commanding. The Omen's weapons hummed to life, and a pulse of blue energy shot out, colliding with the alien ship's hull. The blast rocked the enemy vessel, sending shockwaves through space. The alien ship flinched but quickly returned fire with an even stronger beam, hitting the Omen again. The ship groaned under the strain, but the shields held, for now. The crew worked frantically, responding to every order with precision. Zane was firing tactical bursts, Harper was rerouting power to strengthen their defenses, and Trask was steering the ship with calculated determination. Captain, they're not letting up, Zane reported. If we don't do something fast, they'll overwhelm our shields. Trask's mind raced. She knew they couldn't win this with sheer force alone. They had to outsmart their enemy. The alien ship might be powerful, but it was predictable. Trask recalled a maneuver she had read about in a tactical manual during her early years of training. A tactic so bold it bordered on reckless, but it just might work. Lieutenant, prepare for a high-speed evasive loop. We'll use the asteroid field nearby for cover. The moment we go dark, fire the disruptors on a timer. Let's see if we can make them think we're disabled. There was a brief pause before Zane responded, his voice steady. Aye, Captain. Setting it up now. The Omen pulled a sharp turn, spiraling toward the dense asteroid belt. The alien ship, believing it had cornered its prey, followed. But as soon as the Omen entered the field, it switched off its active sensors, turning invisible in the clutter of the space rocks. The alien ship fired blindly, its shots missing by a wide margin. Now, Trask commanded. The Omen's disruptors fired off in quick succession, the energy beams slicing through the darkness, hitting the alien ship's hull in multiple spots. The result was immediate. The ship veered, its control systems faltering. Direct hit, Captain. They're crippled, Zane shouted. For a moment, everything was eerily still. The alien ship was now drifting, its weapons disabled, its shields shattered. But the battle wasn't over. Trask knew they had just made the first step in gaining the upper hand. The enemy ship might be down, but its crew was still alive and desperate. Prepare to board, Trask ordered. We'll get answers, one way or another. The Omen had survived its first true test, but only just. The crew now knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined, and humanity was about to make its mark. The Omen hovered in the void, its systems slowly stabilizing after the intense battle. The alien ship that had ambushed them was now a derelict husk, floating lifelessly in the cold expanse of space. Captain Trask stood at the bridge, her hands resting on the back of her chair as she scanned the readings on the screen. The crew had done well, better than expected, but their victory was far from certain. "They're not going to let us off this easy," Trask muttered under her breath. Lieutenant Zane, his face illuminated by the glow of his console, gave a cautious glance toward the captain. "Captain, I'm getting multiple ship signatures coming out of hyperspace. They're Cathar. Looks like a full fleet." A wave of tension rippled through the crew. The Cathar were notorious throughout the galaxy, a brutal reptilian species that prized strength above all else. Known for their overwhelming military power and unwavering sense of superiority, they had little tolerance for weakness. And to them, humans were nothing more than an insect to crush. "This is it," Trask said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "We've poked the hornet's nest. Time to see if we can survive the sting." The fleet of Cathar warships loomed ahead, massive and imposing, their dark forms cutting through the stars like shadows. The Cathar had clearly been waiting for an excuse to attack, and now they had one. The Omen had humiliated them by defeating one of their vessels. The human ship was an affront to their honor. "They'll come at us hard," Zane said. "I suggest evasive maneuvers, Captain." "We can't outrun them," Trask replied. "The Omen is fast, but not fast enough. No, we're going to have to outsmart them." The ship's systems were nearly back online, but their shields were still operating at less than half power. Their weapons had also sustained some damage during the previous fight. The Omen was in no condition to take on an entire Cathar fleet head-on. But Trask had an idea. She had always believed that human ingenuity could win out where brute strength failed. "Lieutenant Harper," Trask called, turning to the ship's chief engineer, "is it possible to reroute power to the shields? I want to focus all energy on one side of the ship. We need to give the Cathar something to think about." Harper nodded. "It's risky, Captain, but I can do it. It'll leave the other systems vulnerable, though. I'll need a few minutes." "Do it. We don't have time to waste," Trask ordered. As Harper began reconfiguring the ship's systems, Trask focused on the Cathar fleet. They were closing in fast. The ships were large, heavily armed, and arrogant. They were assuming that the Omen would either surrender or be destroyed outright. Trask wasn't about to give them that satisfaction. "Zane, can you get me a visual on their flagship?" Trask asked. "I need to know who's in charge." Zane worked quickly, his fingers flying across his console. After a few moments, the screen flashed to life, showing the Cathar flagship, a massive, imposing vessel that dwarfed the Omen. "That's the Sanger," Zane said. "It's their most powerful warship. The captain's probably on board." Trask's mind raced. The Cathar would send everything they had at the Omen, but their pride would prevent them from attacking with full force right away. They would toy with the Omen, testing its defenses before committing to a final assault. That would be their mistake. If she could outmaneuver them, maybe she could turn the tables. "All right, here's the plan," Trask said, her voice sharp with confidence. "Harper, once the shields are up, I want you to overload the port side power grid. Make it look like we're about to lose power. Zane, I want you to coordinate with the gunners. Once the Cathar think they've got us cornered, we'll hit them with everything we've got." A series of nods went around the bridge, each crew member ready to execute their part. As the Cathar fleet advanced, Trask held her breath. The Omen was a ship born of human perseverance, and she wasn't about to let it fall now. The fleet began to open fire, their weapons cracking against the Omen's weakened shields. The ship rocked with each blast, but the shields held strong. "Now," Trask ordered, her voice steady. "Execute." Harper triggered the overload, and the port side of the Omen flickered. The Cathar, seeing what they believed to be a failing ship, hesitated for just a split second, a crucial moment. In that instant, Trask ordered the full power surge to their weapons. The Omen fired back with a barrage of plasma shots, catching the nearest Cathar warship off guard. The Omen wasn't just surviving. It was fighting back. Direct hit, Zane shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. For the first time, the Cathar fleet seemed unsure. The Omen wasn't just a symbol of human resilience anymore. It was a force to be reckoned with. The battle was far from over, but the Omen had made its mark, and humanity had proven that it would not be so easily dismissed. "Prepare for another round," Trask said, her voice filled with determination. "We've only just begun." The battle raged on. The Omen had managed to land a few powerful blows against the Cathar fleet, but the odds were still heavily against them. The enemy warships, though momentarily shaken by the unexpected resistance, quickly regrouped and began to close in on the human vessel with ruthless precision. The Cathar were relentless, and they were not going to let the Omen escape so easily. Captain Trask stood tall at the bridge, her eyes never leaving the display screen, watching as the fleet of Cathar warships moved in for the kill. The Omen's shields were weakening, and their weapon systems, though powerful, were rapidly depleting their energy reserves. The damage was mounting, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the Cathar would launch a full assault, breaking the human ship apart piece by piece. "Status report." Trask barked, her voice a sharp contrast to the chaos surrounding her. "Shields at 40%, Captain," Zane reported. "Weapon systems are down to 30% capacity. We can't keep this up for much longer." Trask's mind raced. She needed to find a way out of this, something to turn the tide in humanity's favor before the Omen was overwhelmed. "Harper," Trask called, her eyes narrowing as a thought began to form in her mind. "Can we temporarily boost our engine power? Enough to give us a burst of speed to evade them for a few minutes." Harper didn't hesitate. "It's possible, but it will drain the core for a while. If we do this, we'll be unable to defend ourselves for a short time afterward." "Do it," Trask commanded. "We need that speed now." Harper quickly adjusted the systems, and the Omen's engines roared to life. The ship surged forward, faster than it had ever moved before, rocketing past the Cathar fleet with incredible speed. The Cathar warships, caught off guard by the sudden movement, struggled to adjust in time to pursue. The Omen shot through the battlefield, weaving between debris and laser fire, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. "We've created some distance, Captain," Zane reported, a mix of relief and excitement in his voice. "But they're adjusting. They're coming after us." "Let them come," Trask said, her voice steady despite the growing pressure. "We're not done yet." The Omen's crew had bought themselves a few moments of breathing room, but it wouldn't last long. The Cathar ships would regain their momentum and come after them with renewed ferocity. Trask needed to find a way to make them think twice. "Zane, can you isolate their communications?" Trask asked, her mind spinning. "I need to know their next move before they make it." "I'll try," Zane replied, working quickly at his console. "I'm tapping into their encrypted channels. If I can access the main comm system, I might be able to give us an advantage." The seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity as Zane worked his magic. Trask didn't waste a moment. She turned her attention to her crew, to the heart of what made the Omen so special. The people on this ship weren't just soldiers or scientists. They were a family. And if they were going to make it out of this alive, it would be because of their unity, their adaptability. "We're not going to fight them head-on anymore," Trask announced to her crew, turning toward them. "We've proven that we can hurt them, but we can't sustain this kind of conflict. It's time to change the game." The crew looked at her, waiting for the next step. "We're going to use the nebula," Trask continued, her eyes glowing with determination. "There's a dense nebula just a few parsecs away. It's going to make it nearly impossible for them to track us, but we have to get there first. We'll use the nebula as cover, and we'll turn the tables on them from within." A few heads turned at this, The idea of diving into the heart of an unpredictable nebula was dangerous. But Trask's plan was bold, and her crew trusted her completely. "Harper, we need to reroute all power to the engines. Prepare for a fast jump into the nebula. Zane, once we enter, I want you to scramble our signal and disable their tracking." "Understood." Both Harper and Zane replied in unison. With the Omen's engines already near maximum output, the ship surged once again, this time heading directly toward the nebula. As they closed the distance, the Kithar fleet pursued them relentlessly, unaware of the trap they were about to walk into. "Here they come," Zane said, his eyes glued to his console. "I've got them locked in. Once we're inside the nebula, they won't be able to track us." Trask nodded. The nebula was a gamble, but it was humanity's best shot at survival. As the Omen plunged into the swirling mists of cosmic dust and energy, the Kithar fleet followed, still believing they were moments away from capturing their prey. The moment the Omen entered the nebula, it was like being swallowed by the unknown. The ship's sensors were completely overwhelmed by the dense clouds of gas, and the once clear display screens became nothing more than a blur of interference. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, it seemed like they might be lost in the thick fog of space forever. Then, Trask felt the ship jolt, an abrupt change in direction as the crew executed the final part of the plan. The Omen had gone dark, its signal scrambling, its presence hidden within the nebula. The Kithar fleet had been tricked. The Omen was no longer visible, and for the first time, humanity had taken control of the battle. The Kithar had underestimated them, and now, the tables had turned. The Omen drifted silently through the thick nebula, surrounded by swirling clouds of gas and energy. It was as if the universe itself had decided to grant them a brief reprieve from the battle. Inside the bridge, the atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of cautious hope. They had escaped the immediate danger, but the Kithar fleet was still out there, hunting them like predators in a jungle. "Captain, the Kithar are searching the nebula in wide sweeps," Zane reported. "They're still trying to lock onto our last known coordinates." Trask nodded, her mind working through the possibilities. The Kithar had the advantage in terms of sheer firepower, but they lacked the finesse and adaptability that the Omen's crew had shown. Humanity's greatest strength was its ingenuity, the ability to think and act on the fly. The nebula might have hidden them for now, but it wouldn't be long before the Kithar adapted and started closing in. "We need to give them something to chase," Trask said, her voice low but resolute. "Zane, I want you to send a decoy signal. Make it look like we're trying to escape to the far side of the nebula. It'll buy us a little more time." Zane quickly nodded and began typing at his console, configuring a false signal to mimic the Omen's unique energy signature. The signal would be designed to confuse the Kithar fleet into thinking they were still on course, moving deeper into the nebula. It wouldn't fool them for long, but it would create the illusion that the human ship was fleeing, something the Kithar would expect. As the decoy signal went out, Trask turned to Lieutenant Harper. "How's the power surge holding up? We need our engines at full capacity if we're going to make it out of this alive." Harper glanced at the control panels, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The engines are still holding, Captain, but pushing them any further will put a strain on the core. We don't have much time." "Understood," Trask said. "We'll need to be quick. Once the Kithar are fully distracted by the decoy, we'll use the burst of speed to get us to a safe position. We'll have to wait for the right moment." The tension in the air was palpable. The crew worked in synchronized silence, each person focused on their task. Trask knew the stakes were high. The Omen was humanity's first real foray into deep space. If they lost here, it would not only mean the end of the Omen, it would mean the end of humanity's chances of gaining a foothold in the galaxy. But that wasn't an option. The seconds dragged on, each moment stretched thin with anticipation. Trask could feel the pressure building. The Kithar were getting closer, and they weren't the type to back off easily. The decoy signal had done its job, but the clock was ticking. "Captain," Zane said, his voice breaking through the tension. "They've locked onto the decoy. They're splitting up to search the area. The flagship is still in pursuit." Trask's heart pounded. The flagship was the real threat. If they didn't deal with it soon, it would track them down, and that would be the end of it. "We're not running anymore," Trask said, her voice filled with resolve. "Harper, reroute all remaining power to the weapons. We need to make one last strike. Zane, target the flagship's engine core. If we can disable them, the rest of the fleet will follow." Zane didn't hesitate. "Aye, Captain. I'll lock onto their core." The Omen Asterisk's weapons hummed to life once again, the energy building as the ship prepared for its final confrontation. Trask stood firm, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the view of the nebula. It was now or never. The Cathar had underestimated humanity's ability to survive, and they had made one fatal mistake by thinking they could simply chase the Omen Asterisk down. "Now, Zane," Trask ordered, her eyes narrowed with focus. Zane fired with precision, the Omen Asterisk's disruptor beams lancing out through the nebula. The beam struck the flagship's engine core with incredible force, sending a violent shockwave through the vessel. For a moment, the flagship seemed to falter, as if it had been stunned by the sheer power of the hit. "Yes," Zane shouted. "Direct hit. The flagship is disabled. They're losing control." The Cathar flagship began to drift, its once pristine engines sputtering. The fleet, realizing their leader had been neutralized, hesitated. The Cathar were nothing without their flagship. Without their symbol of power, they were disorganized and vulnerable. "Let's finish this," Trask said, her voice now laced with determination. "Harper, prepare the final jump. Zane, keep them off us for as long as you can. We're getting out of here." With the Cathar flagship disabled and the fleet in disarray, the Omen Asterisk made its move. The ship's engines roared to life once again, hurtling through the nebula, its course now unpredictable and erratic. The remaining Cathar ships tried to regain their composure, but the damage had been done. They were too disorganized to put up a proper chase. Trask watched as the battle unfolded behind them. The Cathar had lost their leader, and now the Omen Asterisk was free. Humanity had won this round. But Trask knew the galaxy was full of enemies far more dangerous than the Cathar. This was just the beginning, and humanity's place in the stars was only just beginning to take shape. The Omen sailed through the depths of the nebula, the Cathar fleet a fading shadow behind them. The immediate threat had passed, but Trask knew this was far from over. The Cathar would recover, and they wouldn't forget the humiliation they had suffered at the hands of a human crew. They were resourceful, persistent, and above all, vengeful. As the ship cut through the turbulent space, the crew's exhaustion was evident. The past few days had been a blur of intense combat and narrow escapes. There was no room for celebration yet. The Omen had won a battle, but the war was still very much alive. "Captain," Zane said, breaking the silence on the bridge, "I'm picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's definitely human." Trask's heart skipped. "Where is it coming from?" Zane's fingers danced across his console. "It's from a nearby system. It's an old distress signal. Could be a scout ship or something smaller. We need to investigate," Trask said, her mind already racing. "It could be a trap, but it's also our best shot at finding allies or intelligence." "Understood," Zane said, adjusting the ship's course. "We'll be there in a few hours." As the Omen altered its trajectory toward the signal source, Trask allowed herself a rare moment of quiet. The hum of the engines was steady, a reminder that they were still alive and still moving forward. The crew had come together when it mattered most. They'd faced down the Cathar and emerged victorious. But Trask knew they couldn't rest. They needed to be ready for whatever came next. The rest of the bridge crew was quiet as well, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Lieutenant Harper worked diligently at her console, ensuring the ship's systems were functioning at full capacity. She was a woman of few words, but Trask trusted her implicitly. She had seen Harper's expertise and resilience firsthand during their fight against the Cathar. After a few hours, the Omen dropped out of hyperspace, entering a system that seemed eerily quiet. A small, uninhabited planet orbited the star at its center, and there was no sign of any large-scale settlements or activity. Just as Zane had predicted, there was a faint distress signal coming from one of the moons. "Prepare to make contact," Trask ordered, her voice steady. "Zane, try to open a channel." Zane worked quickly, attempting to establish communication with whatever craft had sent the signal. The seconds ticked by intense silence, each moment filled with the uncertainty of whether they were walking into a trap or encountering a genuine cry for help. Finally, a crackling voice came through the speakers. "This is the Aquila," the voice said, ragged and weak. "We are under attack, requesting immediate assistance." Trask's pulse quickened. A distressed ship calling for help. This could be the opportunity they'd been waiting for. It was a risk, but a calculated one. "We're coming to your location," Trask said, her tone firm. "Hold tight. We'll get you out of there." "Captain," Zane said, his voice laced with concern, "I'm detecting multiple ships in the vicinity. It's hard to get a clear read, but I'm seeing at least 5 unidentified signatures. They're moving fast." Trask didn't hesitate. "This isn't a rescue mission. It's a trap." "Agreed," Zane replied. "They're likely waiting for us to approach. We've been targeted." Harper, who had been monitoring the systems, turned to face Trask. "Captain, the ship's engines are still recovering from the last jump. If we get into another fight, we'll be at a disadvantage." Trask weighed the options quickly. They were in a vulnerable position, but the possibility of learning more about these unknown ships, or even forming an alliance, was too valuable to ignore. "We need to take the chance," Trask decided, her voice unwavering. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Zane, I want full control of the weapons. We'll make our way to the Aquila and get them on board, but we're not going down without a fight." The Omen shifted course toward the source of the distress signal. The unknown ships, now visible on their scanners, followed at a safe distance, cautious but closing in steadily. "Harper, I need those shields at maximum power," Trask ordered. "Zane, lock on to the closest ship. We can't afford to play defense for too long." A deep growl of the engines filled the bridge as Harper rerouted the necessary power. The ship's shields flared, glowing faintly in the dark of space. The Omen was ready, but it was a risky move. "Captain, we're almost at the moon's orbit," Zane said. "The ships are moving in. They're preparing to surround us." Trask didn't flinch. The Omen had faced impossible odds before. This time would be no different. "On my mark," Trask said, her voice calm and commanding. "Get ready." As the Omen drew closer to the unknown ships, the tension on the bridge rose to a boiling point. They were seconds away from entering the fray. The crew was prepared, but their hearts raced with anticipation. The game was on, and the fate of the Omen rested on their ability to outthink and outfight whatever threat lay ahead. The Omen continued its approach toward the unknown ships, their presence growing clearer with each passing second. Trask's mind was a whirlwind of strategy, anticipation, and caution. This was it, the moment of truth. They could either make a powerful alliance, or they could find themselves trapped in a deadly confrontation. Every move now mattered. "Captain, the ships are positioning themselves around us," Zane reported, his voice tight with concentration. "They're setting up a perimeter. It looks like they're waiting for something." "Do they appear hostile?" Trask asked, her eyes fixed on the screen. Zane hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. "Not exactly. There's no immediate sign of weapon systems powering up, but they're definitely trying to box us in." "Harper," Trask said, How are the engines holding up? Can we make a quick maneuver if we need to? Harper turned to face her, her expression unwavering. We've got enough power for a burst, but that's all. Any evasive action will drain our reserves. We don't have a choice, Trask said. We'll have to play it by ear. The Omen slowed as it approached the moon, its sensors sweeping the area for any signs of additional threats. Trask's grip tightened on the armrest of her chair. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts, and right now, those instincts were telling her something was off about this situation. The unknown ships hadn't made any aggressive moves yet, but they were clearly anticipating something, perhaps the arrival of the Omen, perhaps not. Get ready for contact, Trask ordered. Zane, open a channel. Let's see if we can communicate with them before things go south. Zane swiftly worked the console, and after a few moments of static, the screen flickered to life. A face appeared, someone who appeared human, but with a hardened expression. The sort of look that came from someone who had seen too many battles. The person was wearing a dark flight suit, with a symbol on their chest that was unfamiliar to Trask. This is Commander Asher of the Aquila *. The figure spoke, his voice low but steady. I assume you are the crew of the Omen *. I wasn't expecting to see a human vessel here. Trask didn't waste time with pleasantries. We picked up your distress signal. We're here to help. What's the situation? Commander Asher's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't seem surprised by the immediate response. It's a long story. We've been stranded here for weeks, cut off from our allies. We're being hunted by an unknown enemy, one that's far worse than the Kithar. Trask exchanged a glance with Zane and Harper. If this was true, it meant humanity had just stumbled upon something far bigger than they had imagined. They weren't dealing with a typical enemy. Tell us everything you know, Trask urged. We need to understand what we're up against. Asher took a deep breath, leaning slightly forward as he spoke. We were part of a reconnaissance mission, sent to scout deep space for potential threats. We encountered a hostile fleet, more advanced than anything we've ever seen. They call themselves the Zoran, and they're ruthless. They wiped out our entire fleet, and we've been hiding on this moon ever since. They've been tracking us, but we've managed to stay out of their range so far. Zane's brow furrowed. And why haven't you contacted us sooner? Why didn't you reach out for help from the start? We couldn't risk it, Asher replied, his voice tinged with frustration. We didn't know who was still out there. If we sent out a distress signal, it could have attracted the Zoran right to us. We've been playing it safe, hoping to regroup and find a way to fight back. Trask's mind was racing. This was bad. The Zoran sounded like a far more dangerous foe than the Kithar, and they were out here, hunting humanity's scattered ships. We need to form an alliance, Asher, Trask said, her voice hardening. We can't fight them alone, but we need your help to stand a chance. For a long moment, Asher didn't respond. He looked off screen, as if contemplating the weight of what he was being asked. Finally, he nodded. We're with you, he said, but we'll need to move quickly. The Zoran are closing in on us, and their forces are massive. We can't afford to wait much longer. Trask exhaled, her shoulders relaxing just a fraction. They had made the first step toward an alliance, and it had to be the right one. But their next challenge was ahead of them. The Zoran were coming. They were relentless, and if they were truly as powerful as Asher claimed, humanity might be facing its darkest hour yet. Zane, plot a course to their position. Trask ordered. Harper, prepare the Omen for combat. We're about to face an enemy like no other. The bridge hummed with activity as the crew responded to their orders. Trask stood, her gaze fixed on the view ahead. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, endless and full of danger. They had made it this far, but the real fight was about to begin. The Zoran were coming, and humanity was about to find out what they were truly capable of. The calm before the storm had passed. Now the fire was coming. The Omen surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it carried the crew toward the rendezvous point with the Aquila*. Trask stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders. They were about to face the Zoran, an unknown force that had already decimated a fleet. What chance did they have? But there was no room for doubt now. The time for questions had passed. They would fight, or they would fall, and humanity wouldn't go down quietly. "We're almost there," Zane reported from his station, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "The Zoran fleet is just outside the moon's orbit. We have to make our move fast." Trask nodded. The Aquila* was hiding on the far side of the moon, using its natural terrain to avoid detection. They had no time to waste. If they didn't act now, the Zoran might detect their presence, and their chances of success would plummet. "Harper, status on weapons and shields?" Trask asked, turning toward the lieutenant. "All systems are at full capacity, Captain," Harper responded, her hands flying over her console. "The Omen* is ready for combat. We'll have the edge as long as we stay on the move." Trask gave a sharp nod. "Good. Zane, once we get within range of the Zoran fleet, I want you to disable their lead ship's engines. We'll break their formation, and we'll do it fast." Zane's fingers danced across his console. "Understood. I'll have a lock on their lead ship in 30 seconds. The tension was palpable on the bridge. The crew, usually so composed, was showing signs of strain. This was no longer a skirmish. This was a battle for survival. As the Omen* approached the moon's orbit, the unmistakable shape of the Zoran fleet came into view. Dozens of massive warships surrounded the moon, their weapons silent for the moment, but their presence was an unmistakable threat. They were waiting for something, and Trask was determined to make sure they weren't waiting for them. "Open a channel to the Aquila*, Trask ordered. Within moments, the face of Commander Asher appeared on the screen. He looked more worn than before, but his eyes were still filled with determination. "We're here," Trask said. "We'll attack together. Stay in formation and follow my lead." Asher nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Understood. We'll follow your lead, Captain." The alliance was fragile, but it was all they had. The fate of their survival rested on this moment. "Zane, take the shot," Trask ordered. The Omen's weapons powered up, and with a precise burst, a brilliant beam of energy lanced out toward the lead Zoran ship. The beam struck true, hitting its engine core and sending a shockwave through the vessel. The Zoran flagship wobbled, its engine sputtering as it struggled to regain control. "Direct hit," Zane said, his voice filled with a mix of triumph and tension. "Their engines are offline. They're vulnerable." Trask's heart raced as the Zoran fleet began to react. The lead ship was now drifting, causing chaos among the rest of the fleet. The Zoran ships, confused by the sudden turn of events, began to lose their formation. It was a small victory, but it was enough. "Now, Harper," Trask barked. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us in close to the Aquila*. The Omen* veered sharply, its engines pushing it into a dangerous course that brought it within firing range of the other Zoran ships. The crew braced themselves as the ship shook under enemy fire. They were in the thick of it now. No more running, no more tricks. The battle had begun in earnest. The Aquila* was right behind them, its weapons coming to life as it opened fire on the nearest Zoran ship. Explosions lit up the dark space, and the air on the bridge crackled with the tension of battle. Every second was a risk. Every movement had to be perfect. "Trask, we've got a problem," Zane called out. "A Zoran battleship is locking onto us. They're preparing to fire. Harper, shields up," Trask ordered. "Zane, I need a counterattack. Disable that battleship before it gets a chance to fire." Zane was already on it. "I've got a lock. Weapons charging." A second later, the Omen fired again, the ship's disruptor beams striking the Zoran battleship. It was a massive vessel, but the Omen's precision attacks began to wear it down. The battleship started to falter, its hull pockmarked with damage. Trask didn't let up. She knew this was the moment. Their one chance to make a stand. With the Zoran ships disoriented, the Aquila moved in, joining the fray and adding its firepower to the chaos. All systems holding, Harper reported, her focus razor-sharp. Shields are weakening, but we're still operational. Keep it up, Trask said, watching as the Zoran fleet was slowly pushed back. The battle raged on, but humanity had proven one thing. They could stand their ground. They could fight. The tide of the battle shifted as the Zoran flagship, crippled and adrift, was finished off by a final blow from the Aquila. The remaining Zoran ships hesitated, their unity cracking under the pressure. As the Zoran fleet began to retreat, Trask allowed herself a moment of relief. The immediate danger had passed, but she knew this was far from the end. There would be more battles, more challenges ahead. The galaxy was vast, and humanity's journey was only just beginning. But for now, they had won, and that was enough. We live to fight another day, Trask said quietly, as the Omen and Aquila sailed through the debris of the battle, heading toward the unknown. Humanity had earned its place in the stars.